Twitter, round 3, and my final topic for this evening, hopefully. I just wanted to talk about a topic here native to my home state of Texas. There was a couple of stories in the news that I read over this weekend. And when I saw them, I was like, okay, I've got to comment on this because I thought it was interesting. I thought it was humorous, and I'll explain why in a minute. And because, unfortunately, this individual is at it again. This is with respect to the State Attorney General of the state of Texas, Ken Paxton. I read, number one, in the Texas Tribune this morning, although the story was posted, I believe, on the 24th of February. I don't know why it didn't. It just showed up in the headlines this morning when I was reading it. But it was with respect to a lawsuit that Attorney General Ken Paxton was involved in. He, I guess, tried to prosecute, or he stated that he was going to prosecute these abortion funds organizations, and ended up involved in a lawsuit where they were disputing whether or not he could even do this if he had the jurisdiction to prosecute out of state. And the long and short of it is that the U.S. District Judge, his name is Robert Pittman, he dismissed the lawsuit and dismissed Attorney General Ken Paxton from this lawsuit, ruling basically that he has no authority to enforce these Texas abortion laws beyond state lines, which that's a no-brainer. You cannot enforce state laws outside of your jurisdiction, any state law for that matter. So I saw that and I was like, seriously? Ken Paxton thought he was going to win this. I mean, there's really no way for him to win this. I mean, you cannot, enforce a state law outside of the state. Anybody knows that. Now that's not going to stop. It's probably not going to stop Ken Paxton from appealing this decision, and he may win on appeal if it's the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. I don't know. The thing is this: he can only go so far with this lawsuit if he were successful, let's say, and he were to go and prosecute, a abortion fund organization that's in a Democratic state, let's say California, for example. And that organization decides we're going to sue Ken Paxton in the state of Texas for violating their jurisdictional authority. And let's say they are able to file the case in a federal court in California. And what happens? He gets blocked from prosecuting. He's not going to be able to win it on appeal because obviously the district, the District Appeals Court that covers the state of California is Democratic in majority, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong. But it's going to be that more difficult for him to appeal in a federal court system district that is not in his jurisdictional state of Texas, or that his state of Texas is not in that jurisdiction. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. The second lawsuit that I wanted to talk about was one that he just filed a couple days ago, where he's suing the federal government, namely the president and secretaries of the various agencies that are in the president's cabinet administration, for basically blocking them from enforcing the appropriations bill that was signed into law just a few days ago, or just about a month ago, I think it was. The interesting thing about this lawsuit is I don't think he can win it, and I'll explain why. The crux of his argument, or legal argument in this lawsuit, is that the U.S. House, when they voted on the bill and they passed it in the House, they did not have a quorum. Quorum means a majority of representatives had to be present to be able to do business. Otherwise, any less than that amount, they could only adjourn for the day, or they could do, I don't know what other things they could do, but they could not vote on passing bills. That's the crux of it. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that there is precedence stemming from a case between Speaker McCarthy and then Speaker Pelosi suing about whether or not whether the rules for proxy that Pelosi enacted, well, she didn't enact it, they voted on it and it passed. But whether those resolution for that proxy voting is valid at all. And basically the federal judge and the appeals court that tried the case, because McCarthy lost the case and he filed it on appeal and lost the appeal. But basically the decision or the ruling of that court in the appeals court was that because Congress is protected by the speech and debate clause, their actions, whatever they may be in litigating or legislating, they are protected from judgment by the courts, or from analysis by the courts. So the judges said, well, we're going to toss this out because they're immune. We cannot decide whether or not what they did is illegal because it's immune from our jurisdiction. We don't have the jurisdiction with which to examine it or even talk about it. That precedent is there. What Ken Paxton is doing is he's suing the president and these secretaries to say, okay, this law should have never taken effect because there was not a quorum in the House for it to pass. Well, the question is this, and this is the biggest legal hurdle that I think Ken Paxton is going to cross with this, and I don't think he can beat it, is the fact that he needs to be able to show that these individuals are accountable for the actions of the U.S. House. Because his argument is that the U.S. House was in the wrong. These individuals could not be in the wrong because they are not accountable for the actions of Congress. Okay? And the court, the federal judge that has to hear this case has to decide forcefully in order to be able to even consider blocking this bill or blocking this budget. He has to consider whether or not what Congress did was illegal or was incorrect. And the speech and debate clause prevents the judge from doing this. And since it prevents the judge from doing this, he cannot make that determination to be able to say, okay, in fact, these guys cannot enforce it because it's wrong. If he can't say that it's wrong, basically, then he cannot block it or block these people from basically enforcing it. And that's what I'm getting at. The president, he is in his purview to sign or veto bills into law. Plain and simple. He cannot make a determination, complete determination per se, that Congress was in the wrong on this. He doesn't have to. Okay, it's not his purview to do that. As long as he either passes the bills or he vetoes them, that's all he's required to do. So he cannot be held accountable for the actions of Congress. Same is being said for all these secretaries of these different agencies. Their only action is they will receive benefits from the passage of this bill into law, this budget. Other than that, they have no say whatsoever in the manner in which Congress passed it, in the manner in which the president signed it into law or vetoed it. I mean, they're basically they're immune in that sense because they are not a direct participant of the actions of what Congress accomplished with the passage of this bill. So it's going to be a very steep hurdle for Ken Paxton to cross and beat to accomplish winning this particular lawsuit. I would be surprised and I would be appalled if somehow a federal judge were to award the victory to Ken Paxton because of the fact that the only way I see that happening is if the judge that handles the case is a conservative judge, a hardcore conservative judge that politically favors his political colleagues. In this case, I don't see how that's going to happen. Given that the case right now, as it stands, they're determining where the correct venue is. Apparently, the federal government has petitioned a motion to transfer the case to another court because Paxton, and this is, I believe, one of his other mistakes, was that he filed this lawsuit in Lubbock in the Northern District Federal Court. He doesn't do business in the Northern District, and neither does the federal government, the defendants in this case. And this is the petition that the federal government is doing. This attorney was representing all these individuals, including the president. They're petitioning to say, okay, because Paxton doesn't do business here, and neither do we. The laws were not legislated in Lubbock or in that district. We want this transferred either to the District of Columbia, where the law was legislated, which is the most logical, or in Austin, in the Austin district, which is where Paxton does business. Now, if it does get transferred and it gets transferred to D.C., the chances of Paxton winning it are going to be nil, basically, because it's that district is heavily Democratic, unfortunately. If it gets sent to Austin, there is an opposite chance that he might win. I don't know, because the judge in Austin, the majority judge that handles a lot of Paxton's cases is Robert Pittman, and as you can see, he is not really too particular about Ken Paxton. It doesn't look like, because there's a number of cases, he's not too particular, rather, about cases involving Texas versus the U.S. government, because he's ruled on both sides on a variety of cases. So, I mean, it's very likely that even if it were to go to Austin, Paxton stands a chance to lose the case there as well. It's going to be interesting to see how these two cases, how this one case plays out, because obviously the other one, unfortunately, it got thrown out. Being that it was dismissed and thrown out, I don't think that Paxton can actually appeal the decision. He would have to refile the case. Now, does he want to refile that abortion funds case? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Well, I hope that this third round was interesting for you guys. I will try to do some more live streaming this week if I can. If there's any other topics that come up that are interesting, I will try to get on them and talk about them the same day that they occur. Until then, have a good evening, and I hope to see you guys again soon. And I hope that you'll have a good evening. And I think as Americans, we need to wake up and we need to be more alert to what's going on with these situations. That being said, have a good night and good evening.